So, welcome again to another edition of the Influencer Global podcast. And I must say, I'm absolutely delighted today to be having on the show Shannon Walker, who is the founder of Social Disruption. Lovely to see you, Shannon.
Great to be here.
Yeah, and that's a great tree behind. For those of you that are listening to this, you've got an amazing plant behind you, which is
Cheese plant.
cheese plant. That's right. I was just trying to think of it.
My pride and joy. I had a plant craziness during last lockdown, so this one's one I reared during the first lockdown.
Yeah, well,
Um,
I've got one, of course, behind me, although mine's fake.
I guess that you can't tell. It looks really good.
It looks good. That's half the battle. So today we're going to talk about diversity, specifically in relation to pay around influencers, and I know it's something you feel very strongly about, as of course do I. But before we get into sort of the deep dive, sort of weeds of the discussion, perhaps you can just tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about you and where your journey has come from and what sort of background.
I'll try and make this speedy because it can be a mouthful. But yeah, so founder of Social Disruption. I didn't start there. I actually started my career in-house, working across various different media disciplines such as advertising, social, PR, traditional PR, and influencer marketing. I've always been really interested in marketing and the power that it has. And from studying it at university, I did I think advertising, PR, media, getting a real sense that marketers, we have power. So I've always taken that into each role, thinking, as a marketer, what I put out there, the campaigns I work on have a power to shape representations of people or do good in society, etc. So that's something I've always been quite conscious of. And mainly in my experience, I've worked with beautiful, amazing luxury brands, kind of everyday, well-known consumer brands. And whilst that's been amazing, kind of setting up influencer marketing departments for like large luxury department stores, there's always been something within me that hasn't felt fulfilled, and that's been the lack of diversity in those spaces, the lack of diversity in the campaigns, the fact that communications, we know it's empowering, then we're always also talking about mental health problems. And I've always been, if we do more good comms, surely that would infiltrate in society. So the end of December 2019, I kind of just did a leap of faith, feeling unfulfilled, wanting more purpose in my profession, to kind of step out of kind of working for a brand environment, to launch my own thing, to be more disruptive, to support more purpose and more conscious communications, to encourage more diversity. And therefore, Social Disruption was born, and it's really about that. It drives our mission to help brands kind of know the power of storytelling, the power of comms, and saying, can we use our comms in a more empowering way to champion and celebrate diversity, to help kind of dismantle those injustices that exist. So that, in a nutshell, is kind of my experience and how I got here today.
That's brilliant, and it's really encouraging to see. And just on that, it's incredible how many female entrepreneurs have grown out of the
Oh
influencer
God,
space,
yeah,
isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
it's 85% that we reckon
Wow,
is female related, particularly when you look at B2C, which is
yeah,
phenomenal, isn't it?
that is
Um,
amazing.
but one thing I was going to ask you is that we're still having this conversation about the
Mm.
influencer pay gap, aren't we? That things are still not quite right. Why do you think this is still occurring? You know,
To put it bluntly, I think because for so many years we've done a lot of talking. It's nothing new. There's a pay gap. Nothing new that there's disparity between different races and pay. Nothing new that there's injustice. But I think we've done a lot of talking in the last couple of years, where we're seeing now more action, seeing more reports, more studies. Because even I was shocked, to be honest. There was a recent report by MSL, I believe. They put out a report that Black creators feel that they're often monetized less because of their race. And I was sort of shocked because there was lots of reports last year as well about this. So I assumed a year later there'd be better, more confidence in the community. There'd be, just a lot more positive news. And I think it just reinforces that we need to continuously kind of talk about this issue, continuously benchmark and assess ourselves, and kind of put out reports just to ensure long term we're holding ourselves accountable and not talking, but also doing action behind it, which is really important. I'd
yeah,
say
no,
that's the reason why there's still disparity between pay
Because it's
gaps.
more widely, what you're saying is it's still with more, what, there's more information about it now, so of course it's creating greater discussion.
That too, yeah, yeah.
So I mean, I'm guessing that you would subscribe to this. We've really got to be within the influencer community, educate brands and agencies in particular to making sure that there is a real proper diverse mix amongst their campaigns. Not least of all because it's more representative of their existing target audience, but of course it might well reach brand new audiences and different types of
Absolutely.
content that they'd never even thought about.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, and do you think, so why do you think this matters? You know, at the end of the day, it's all very well to talk about it, but why does it really, really matter?
Do you know what I always one of the quotes that I personally use, that I personally felt, is that no one deserves to feel not seen, not heard, not respected. And for me, that drives my work, in working with various different networks and educating brands, because it just feels awful to not feel important or valued. And because of something you cannot change, like you can change your hairstyle, I can change your clothes, look cool. You can't change your skin color. It's who you
Mm,
are, and we all deserve to be respected. And based on that, so I think at the fundament that's it. And it's basic humanity. I think, we're all given this beautiful earth to live on. Therefore, we should all respect each other, no matter where we come from, because we all bleed the same blood. Sorry to be cliche, and we all have a responsibility in regards to that. If we see injustice, we need to really all look at it and kind of level the playing field, because we all breathe the same air. So therefore, why
yeah.
is anyone better than others? And I think it's really important to dismantle those systems that suggest otherwise.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I was going to ask you as well, do you think we need to support content creators, particularly in some of these diverse groups, to be more confident about negotiating better and not feeling that they are, not worthy of a certain price point for a video creation or for something else that's specific. So I think there's, we were talking about educating brands and
Mm.
agencies, but, I think there's also an argument to say that, and I can speak from experience of somebody that I know recently that they were going to suggest to me a price point, and I literally said to them, no, 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 you're way better than that, double it.
Yeah,
She doubled it, and they paid it without
honestly.
question. So,
Well,
I mean, yeah, go on, what were you going to say?
no, absolutely. We're PR partners of Black British Bloggers Network,
Yes.
and an amazing, phenomenal network that exists. They've started about, I think, 2015 or 16 to kind of champion and create more community in the Black British community. And we support them in just helping brands we work with, or just brands get more creators of color on their radar, and also kind of provide mentoring and support to those creators. And like you said, we have numerous conversations where people are putting forward rates and we're like, what? Like, do you know how strong your engagement is? Do you know how amazing your talent is? This is not what you should be at. And I think it's just consistently having those conversations and providing transparency. That's what it comes down to. And that's helped fuel this current pay gap we have right now, where there's lack of knowledge sharing, there's lack of transparency. And we try to fill that gap in our small way by just having those one-to-one combos. And BBB are really great in doing educational platforms as well, where they kind of sit with brands and influencer marketers, where they can sort of say, all right, how can we get campaigns? What's the best way to intro to a brand, etc. So
Mm.
it's, I think as marketeers and creators, we can work better together to support um, ourselves in that regards.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I interviewed somebody recently, a fashion influencer, and she was saying to me that she was involved in a quintessentially very British brand, and the brand decided to work with her for the first time. And the feedback that she was telling me was so good because of the type of content that she was doing. And one of the comments was, I'd never thought about that type of brand. And so she was a follow
Ah,
ethnic brand, and because of you promoting it in the way that you did, I'm now totally engaged and want to find out more about that particular brand. So that was a great example, wasn't it? And of course that's fed back to the brand. They can
of
see that
course, exactly,
research, you can
yeah.
see that
And
intel, and
tapping
they
into a new market.
absolutely, absolutely. And so just following on for what we were just talking about when it comes to content creators and knowing their worth and value, do you think, and I know it's a bit of a challenging question because there's all sorts of variables. Do you think we need to have better, almost like standard rates of pay? I mean, I know there are somewhat loosely, but do you think that would help?
Do you know what? That's a really difficult question. 'Cause when you look at other industries, for example, a PR manager, for example, there's different bandings. You know what kind of rate you need to be on when you go for a job. You give your salary expectations, and it's so clear. There's so much standardization, and
Indeed.
it works. With influence marketing now, just because two people have 50,000 following, if one of them's an expert, if one of them's a photographer or more creative, it will completely change what they charge. So it's really difficult to have something standard when there's so many different variables involved that will contribute to what someone charges. If they're a well-known celebrity, but with a smaller following, again, their name and their reputation is going to hold more weight. So to answer your questions, it's difficult to answer. I think it probably help bring some sort of like guidelines for people that are more creators, and the industry experts perhaps may have a different banding, but I think there's so many different variables involved. I think just maybe even transparency, just having perhaps audits and releasing that data of what people are charging based on engagement or based on if they're
That's a good idea. Yeah.
that might be better.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know that, and I've seen some of that data that does
Yes,
support what you
yeah.
say, because I think it does indeed help. The reason I say that is because a free dress doesn't pay the rent, does it? And
Yeah.
so many brands believe that they can work with content creators purely on a gifting basis, and I think and we know that's somewhat part of the early. Obviously, it depends on the value of the gift. If you're giving somebody a sofa or a Rolex watch, it's
Mhm.
slightly different. But but largely, if it's a consumable product or something, or something that you're going to try out, um, I think there's a lot to be said for making sure that there are perhaps there's even minimum rates of pay.
Mm.
There's something, and we have in our society, don't we? Minimum standards of pay. So
No, absolutely,
why shouldn't
absolutely.
that? Because particularly for these individuals that are working on their own, that are multi-talented. You wouldn't
No,
go and
absolutely. Yeah.
when you'd go and you pay for an advert in a magazine, you pay for a TV advert, a
There you
billboard ad.
go. There
Why
you
would you
go.
not pay for somebody that has an engaged audience? In many cases, a lot higher.
No, absolutely. And just to add to that, I think it's really incredible what some of the platforms are doing in regards to their creator funds, because it allows the creators to have more power and be monetized on their platform. Because let's be honest, it takes about a good couple of years actually to build engagement and community for yourself on those platforms and use those platforms. So it's good
Mhm.
that they're now giving back to the creators, and it will help lessen that pay disparity that we are seeing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know that, for example, one of the agencies I know very well in Los Angeles in America, they were actually saying to some brands that had said, look, we want to work with a number of influencers. The selection then came back, which was unbelievably diverse, really great, mixed range, and maybe more than the client needed, because that's often the case. You want the client to
Mm.
come back
Oh
to you
yeah.
so, and what happened is, and I remember this being cited a while ago, the client just picked the white influencers, and
Wow.
then the agency said, it is part of our policy that we support and promote all diverse
Amazing.
groups. And you know what happened? The agency refused to work with that client on the basis of
I
their
had a
selection,
feeling.
which I think is
What
amazing.
can you do? Yeah, I think people often say, "Oh, but what if we this? What if that?" But do you want to work with people like that? Do you want to be aligned with brands perhaps that actually that indirectly say, actually, we don't support other creators of color? So I think
Exactly,
sometimes
exactly,
it's a
exactly.
hard one business wise. But do you want to be aligned? Like you've got to be honest. And I personally don't. Yeah.
And I say good for you, because actually, what's the point in having a value if you're not actually
Mm,
driving that forward? So not only were
absolutely.
all of the because the organization has a very, very mixed range of people from all different ethnicities
Yeah.
from around the world, and they were so pleased that the agency made that
There you
decision.
go.
So there were lots of other plus points that came from that decision. So I was
They're
really
awesome.
pleased about that. So let's talk about some brands or I'm sure you know of because this is a specialism of yours. What are the types of companies that you say, good on you guys? I'm loving what you're doing. You're really embracing diversity. You're really ensuring that the creators are well remunerated and well paid rather than just tokenism. Which are the
Yeah.
ones that are standing out for you?
I worked with a emerging, you know what I got to say, the emerging brands currently, the brands that are kind of launching this last 12 months or a couple of years, they've done just really amazingly, to be honest, in regards to their diversity efforts. And we worked with a really amazing brand last year called Emmeline, and we were part of their Your Shade, Your Rules campaign. And we did a really cool like creative campaign with influencers from all walks of life, different shades, different sizes, and there was a wonderful drag queen in there. It was such a fun campaign, and the vibe on set was just so cool. People felt so relaxed. It was such a vibesy atmosphere, and the content itself just spoke to so many people. And that wasn't just a fun campaign to do. It was really embedded in the values of that brand, because their slogan is your shade, your rules. They stand for inclusivity. So I really have to give prompts to small brands like that who have it set in their foundation that they're about inclusivity. In terms of the larger players, I've got to shout out one of the creatives on the Black British Bloggers Network, Trina from Culture. I think her name's Trina Charles. Had recently done a collaboration with Nike, and Nike's one of my favorite brands for inclusivity because I think they do it so awesomely. And it's not just about, oh great, we've got a campaign. They really impact positively the community they work with. So she did a really great campaign with them as part of the Curve Catwalk, which celebrates size positivity, body positivity, and they launched a sports bra with her to tackle an issue of women who are of larger size and can't really find bras that suit their body shape. And I think that's really key when it comes to inclusive campaigns, where it's not just about representing people, but it's also about representing problems in that community and tackling it through a engaging campaign, and using the people in the community as the voice for those issues or representations, rather than them being used as a commodity to market. So I think that's the real key difference. And another one I can think of, I'm a huge admirer of, there's a US brand called Brandon Blackwood. They launched really amazing bags last year, and one of them had a slogan called End Systemic Racism. And that's really in your face way to kind of champion the need for dismantling racial injustice. And they kind of put it on their slogan, like, we stand for this, but we're also having it on our products. And a part of that, again, going as a step forward to use profit from that to give back to the community. So those brands that kind of don't just represent a diverse amount of people, but
you're educating people as well.
A long-term approach. There you go. Yeah, those are the ones. And non-apologetic. It's not like, we'll do it a little bit to make people comfortable. It's like, no, we're here. This is what we stand for. We're faced with it. Those are the ones that I really respect and stand out from the top of my head.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear. Great to hear, and I think what we don't want to see is just what I would call tokenism, which was what we saw from Black Lives Matter, didn't we? We saw so many people just jumping on the wave because it was topical and trending, and I think people are starting to see through that, and because it's not about, we started this chat, didn't we, about we need more action rather than just words. And I think those examples that you've just demonstrated, where they're almost using it as part of their strapline strategy, is really, really great to hear.
Throughout.
Yeah. So I'm now going to imagine that you're in the government now. You're head of diversity, head of diversity and influence.
Oh dear.
You've got as much money as you want. You can do whatever you want. What would you like to see change in our society when it comes to brand engagement? We represent the influencer marketing industry. We know it's growing hugely at the moment, but we want everybody to benefit. So what are some of the, if you could do whatever you wanted to do, what would be some of the things you'd like to see change?
The key thing I believe I'd like to see change, I think I've had a lot of amazing conversations with brands and individuals over the last year or so, and I think it would be amazing to see that diversity more internal, if I'm honest. And where we see shortcomings, I do believe is because inclusivity and diversity is still an end result. It's still let's do a campaign, let's get some people of color at the end of the campaign, rather than it being throughout, rather than there's managers, there's directors, people high level. And I understand that obviously you can't just like wipe out an entire workforce, and it's not that quick, but you can work with consultants. You can actually see value in a creator, and rather than going, oh yeah, give us your thoughts. Actually, no, let's retain you, creator, or whoever you may be, and to actually support us long term. And I do, even I have conversations where it's like, oh, can we get your thoughts on something? And I'm like, you mean consultation? Because that's what it is. And I think more respect for the many abundance of like talent or marketeers that exist with expertise and lived experience, you can really provide great support in this journey. So I'd like to see more people working within the brands, and more support for those businesses that or creators again that are doing the work, because it's not new. It's a however many old 100-year whatever issue, and I do think people are treating it as brand new as well. So I'd love to see more respect and support for those on the ground communities or influencers and marketers. I mean, doing it long term, as well as seeing them more involved in the conversations and change rather than the end result.
And I mean, I for one would echo that. I'm a great fan of supporting universities as well. Those that are studying almost at the forefront. And if we can, I've just been involved in an influencer marketing campaign actually with Nottingham Trent University, and
Awesome.
and we've had like 450 students involved in this particular campaign, which is super exciting. But I've seen actually even my role there as one of educational and supporting these individuals through a potential career in influencer marketing. But that's just one university. Just imagine if we could really engage and inspire with schools and
No,
because
yeah.
actually, how many people say to you, Shannon, oh, I want to be an influencer, or I want to work.
Yeah.
It's such a great industry to be in. So we are at the forefront of being able to create change. So I do think everybody together. I mean, maybe we even create our own industry-wide campaign. Perhaps that's something to consider.
Well, that is a really good point. Yeah, I think definitely supporting the next wave of talent as well is something we can do. And also because we do every so often, we've got one coming up in February with Boston University. We do talks with them and their students on the influencer marketing industry.
Great.
And we also do a range of training and apprenticeships in-house where we can support the next creators and teach them a way of doing comms purposefully and being diverse and inclusivity, and
Absolutely.
embedding that in their values rather than thinking just campaign wise.
Yeah.
It's amazing. People are so open to it.
I bet they are. I bet they are. Well, look, we could talk all day, the two of us, and it's so lovely to have you here, and I embrace your values and what you've done so well to date. So all the best for the future, and thank you for being my guest on the Influence Global podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an amazing chat. Thank you.
That's it for another edition of Influence. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and give me your feedback, gordon@gordonglenister.com, or you can follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram or Twitter, where you can also ask me a question. If you're able to give us a 5-star review, we really do appreciate that too. And if you want help in creating an influencer marketing strategy, or you'd like to join the Influencer Marketing Roundtable weekly event, then do head over to gordonglenister.com. And if you want to find out more about our shows and others, go over to the marketingpodcastnetwork.com. You might like to check out Jason Fall's Winfluence podcast as well. Thanks as always, of course, to my producer Neil Whiteside from Freedom One. And until next time, from me, Gordon Glenister, it's bye for now.